What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. We're back into our houseplant room here, talking about something that a lot of you have asked me about in recent weeks, and that is what happens when you buy a bunch of seed and you aren't planning on planting it right away, or maybe you're buying it in advance because it was a good deal and you want to store it for a long period of time. What's the best way to store your seeds for long-term preservation or short-term preservation so that they keep the best viability? In today's episode, that's what we're going to talk about, so hopefully you guys are going to enjoy. Make sure to throw a like up there if you do, and also remember to check out MIgardener.com because we just so happen to sell seeds at a very affordable price. And so if you're looking at stocking up for the coming growing season or for future growing seasons, make sure to go check us out and at least see what we have, and you might find something that you want to grow. So with that being said, I want to jump on into kind of Viability 101. When it comes to seeds, and then we'll talk about some different seed preservation techniques that I've used and really do enjoy. The first thing is knowing the viability of the seeds to begin with. Certain seeds will have viability that drop off faster than others. Viability meaning the ability for them to germinate. So when you're looking at, say, a group of 100 seeds, the amount of seeds that germinate is known as the germination rate. This is generally a percentage, hopefully higher than 70, usually around 80%. That's kind of the industry standard, is around 75 to 80%. Higher is always going to be better, obviously, and lower, you start to get into what's considered low germ seeds, or sometimes your more wild seeds, or just less domesticated. They generally are going to have lower germination rates. So if you just took a seed right from the wild and tried to germinate it, that's typically going to have a lower germination rate because the survival of the fittest. You know, you might take 100 seeds and they might be like wild maples, right? Well, wild maples, the fittest have to survive out of a forest. And so you might get a lower germination rate, something more like 45 or 50% when it comes to like just a wild maple out in your yard. Whereas if you get something like lettuce or tomatoes, because of the fact that over time, the way they've been cultivated, we've actually preserved these seeds, the viability has actually gone up. Agronomists have found that over the years, viability has actually increased because they're not relying on natural reproduction to continue their biological diversity, right? It's on us, the grower or the gardener or the farmer, to actually save the seeds and then just regrow them. And so it's not survival of the fittest as much. So they've kind of adapted to that over time, and they've actually found that germination rates have increased. So depending on what you're saving, if you're growing a flower out in your yard and you really thought it was pretty, germination rates are going to start at a low point anyways. But if you're growing something like a tomato or a pepper, lettuce, whatever, some of your more domesticated garden crops, those are going to start out pretty high as it is. So you're going to have some leeway, some wiggle room, that if things do drop off over time, which they naturally will, you're going to have some security. Now, that being said, that does bring me to the next point of viability, which is time. The time that you store your seeds does have an effect on the viability. Over time, you will lose germination. However, a 0% germination rate is nearly impossible. And how I can explain this best is known as a bell curve. Now, a bell curve, you will see, I'll try to find a picture if I can, but a bell curve is basically the path that is most probable for a set of statistics. So if you're looking at like the survivability of a bacteria, you're going to have a low extreme, you're going to have a high extreme, and you're going to have an ideal threshold, right? Now, take viability. With viability, it is half that. It's known as kind of an S curve. An S curve, or kind of the half of a bell curve, is going to be peak viability, and it drops off. You'll notice that the slope of the line drops off much quicker as you are decreasing in viability. But the closer you get to the bottom, it actually gets harder and harder to go to true 0%. So if your y-axis is your germination rate and your x-axis is time, the longer you go, it actually is harder and harder to get to like true 0, just because of the fact that once they survive past a certain point, their odds of surviving another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years is actually quite high, because it gets harder and harder to get to that true zero. So you're going to lose most of your germination rate within the first 5 to 10 years or so. That's not to say that you should be saving seeds 15 years. You will lose a lot of viability after that point. But in the first 1 to 3 years, you're almost going to notice very little, if any, drop off in viability. So just keep that in mind, that the time that you're going to save your seeds will dictate the viability of them. However, with something like just a garden crop that you're saving from one year to the next, you're hardly going to notice it, if any. Now, there are a certain set of crops that will drop off much faster, and those are crops like alliums. So your onions, your garlic, chives, things like that, shallots, those are going to drop off much faster. Those have a viability window of about 2 years. After 2 years, you're really going to have very low germination rate just because of the nature of them. Things like parsnips. Parsnips have very low germination rate after about a year. Carrots have a relatively low germination rate after about 1.5 to 3 years or so. That's where they really start dropping off very quickly. Things like celery. Celery tends to drop off relatively quickly as well. And so with some of those crops, those are ones that you want to use very quickly. You can't really store them for 5-10 years. I always laugh when people, they share pictures of like those survival seed kits. And they're like, I'm preparing for the worst case scenario. And like half of their kit are seeds that like you have to use within a year or two. Otherwise, they become inviable anyways. And I'm like, all right, well, if crap hits the fan, I know that half your garden's not sprouting. It's not the joke about preparation, but I'm just saying that some of those are a little more gimmicky than they are useful. And so, some of those seeds just need to be used. And so if you're trying to preserve some seeds like those onions, carrots, celery, parsnips, and whatnot, you would just need to use those more quickly than some of your other seeds that you can save for a long time. The last question that I do get asked about viability, though, is how long is too long? And I would always say, if you have seeds, in these bins here is kind of like just a small portion. I didn't want to grab all of my seeds. I have like 6 of these bins. Maybe someday we'll do a full seed haul tour. If you want to see a full seed haul tour, let me know in the comments box below and like this video. If this video gets, we'll go 3,500 likes, so 3,500 likes. If this video gets 3,500 likes, we will do a seed haul video, a complete seed collection tour. But this is just a very small portion of what I've got here. And some of these seeds range anywhere from 5 to 10 years, some even older than that, because I just don't throw out seeds. Viability is something that does decrease over time, but it's something that does not, like I said, it rarely goes to pure zero unless they've been exposed to wildly extreme temperatures that usually, or like, mold or mildew that can cause them to die. So not a huge concern of mine. I tend to keep all my seeds, even if I've opened them or whatever, I just tend to keep them around. Now, what I want to do is I want to go through the different methods that I have here, just ways that I've used them, and then I'll talk about just kind of how, my preferred preference. So the first method I have here that I really have used for a long period of time is just a mason jar, a sealed mason jar, and I love this because the first tip to keeping your viability and your seeds for a long period of time or a short period of time is keeping them cool, dark, and dry. So a mason jar is going to give you the dry, all of these are going to meet all those criteria, but keeps them very dry. The fact that it has, a lid and a ring really latches in it keeps out any moisture whatsoever, really locks in that freshness, and I love that. You can also hook it up to like a vacuum sealer. If you have one of those that has a jar attachment, you can actually suck the air right out of them. And putting them in a vacuum actually reduces the amount of oxidation that can happen. And that actually extends the life expectancy of your seeds even more. So this is a really handy tool. I absolutely love mason jars, nothing against them. They can be a little bit bulky. But if you don't have that many seeds, or if you have bulk seeds, like if you harvest a bunch of corn seed, right, and you want to save it for a long period of time, this is great for like a single variety of seed even, right? So you throw a single variety of seed in here, or throw your packets in. I just simply take my packets here and just take them, give them a quick little quick little bend, just like that. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever, right? They're inside the jar, they're gonna be sealed, they're gonna be dry. Now the cool component, a lot of people say, well, how cold? Like freezer cold, basement cold, root cellar cold? You just want it to be cool. It does not need to be like freezing cold subarctic temperatures. It just needs to be cool. So I typically say cool is anything that is below about 60 degrees. That's going to be cool. Second method that I really like, because it is a little more flat and it's a little more sortable, is just using Ziploc baggies. I got nothing against them. People always want to hate on Ziploc baggies, but I'll tell you, they're reusable. And because seed packets are generally pretty flat, I can take all of one variety. I can take like all my lettuce, all my peppers, all my cucumbers, whatever, throw them in a bag, they lay flat, and I can stack them up. I can just keep them in a big tote or whatever, and they're gonna stay dry, but they're also gonna stay cool because you can store them in your fridge like this. I would recommend double bagging them. There is moisture in a fridge, obviously, so double bagging them is going to be smart. But you can do just fine using this. Obviously, bigger bags, so it gives you versatility. Love the Ziploc baggie method. Used it for many years. Never had a problem with it. And then the final method that there's lots of different options out there, kind of like this. There's a reason why I have my whole collection in these Rubbermaid totes here, or these Sterilite totes, I guess, is because I have a lot of seeds. I have a ton of seeds in my collection, and I've amassed a big collection from a lot of you that send in seeds. I save seeds over the years from our own garden. I buy more seeds from different places, and I acquire seeds from different trips. And I keep adding to my collection, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And for me, it's like anything. The bigger it gets, the more storage you need. And baggies, Ziploc baggies, and mason jars only last so long before it becomes like, okay, all right, I need an intervention. like I need an intervention. And so for this allows me just to like literally put flower seeds, right? These are like big bulk collections of flower seeds. These ones are literally all French varieties, like foreign European varieties. Pretty broad, but I have one for just French varieties. I've got another one here. Which one did I grab here? I have one, it's called Random Assorted. So I don't know what that means. Maybe I need to overhaul my collection a little bit. That'll maybe another video is overhauling my seed collection and organizing it a little better. But I've got so many of these bins full of seeds. And so it just allows me like a lot more bulk storage, obviously. I've seen a lot of people use like fishing tackle boxes. Those like little plastic Plano tackle boxes. Those are fantastic as well. I've seen people use things like medicine containers or film canisters. There's lots of different options that exist. But at the core, you just want to keep them cool, hopefully below 60 degrees. That's ideal. You want to keep them dry, obviously. Dry is key, and you want to keep them dark. Dark is super important. That's the last thing, is just don't store them someplace where they're going to be exposed to lots of sunlight, because sunlight does destroy seeds over time. So you want to keep them just, like I said, dark is going to be key. And with that being said, they're going to stay fresh for a very long period of time. That's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. Just a short video, maybe longer. I don't know. I don't have a time, but I just get a lot of questions about seed storage and how long does it last? What methods do I choose? How to do it. And so, yeah. So let me know if you guys want to see a seed tour video. I'd be happy to do one. And yeah, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new, and I will catch you all on the next video. All right, go big or go home, everyone. Take care. Bye.